Most people think bread is just bread. A slice in the morning, maybe a sandwich at lunch, a roll with dinner. It feels harmless. It feels normal. For most of us, bread has been part of every single day for as long as we can remember. So when someone says, "Stop eating bread for 2 weeks," the first reaction is usually disbelief. 2 weeks without bread? That sounds extreme. That sounds unnecessary. That might even sound impossible. But here's what almost nobody tells you. When you remove bread from your diet, even for just 14 days, your body does not simply lose one food. It triggers a cascade of internal changes that affect your blood sugar, your water retention, your digestion, your energy, your cravings, and even your brain chemistry. Some of those changes happen within the first 24 hours. Others unfold slowly, day by day, like a system quietly rebooting itself from the inside. This is not about whether bread is evil. This is not a lecture telling you to never eat bread again. This is about understanding what is actually happening inside your body when that one daily habit disappears, because the biology is far more fascinating than most people realize, and the effects are far more widespread than most people expect. So let us start from the very beginning. Day 1, hour 1, the moment you decide the bread stops. Your body runs on glucose. That's its preferred fuel, its first choice, the thing it reaches for before anything else. And bread, especially white bread, is essentially a delivery system for glucose. It breaks down fast, faster than most people understand. A slice of white bread has a glycemic index comparable to pure table sugar. That means the moment you eat it, your digestive system tears it apart rapidly, and a wave of glucose floods your bloodstream. Your pancreas responds by releasing insulin, which acts like a delivery driver, rushing glucose into your cells for energy or storing what is not needed as fat. This happens every time, every single slice. Now imagine that cycle has been running every day, multiple times a day for years. Your blood sugar spikes, insulin surges, blood sugar drops, and suddenly you feel that familiar dip in energy around mid-morning or mid-afternoon. You feel a little foggy, a little tired, a little hungry again, even though you ate not long ago. That's the insulin cycle doing exactly what it was designed to do. And bread, particularly refined bread, keeps that cycle spinning fast and hard throughout the day. On day 1 without bread, that cycle begins to slow down. Your blood sugar does not spike the same way it did at breakfast. Your insulin does not flood your system in that sharp reactive surge. For the first time in a long time, your blood sugar starts to find a more level, gradual rhythm. But here is what most people actually feel on day 1, and it surprises them. They feel worse, not better. The cravings hit quickly. Not because bread is chemically addictive in the way that something like nicotine is, but because your brain has been conditioned to expect that rapid glucose hit. When it does not arrive, your brain sends out signals. It wants what it knows. You may feel a little irritable, a little unfocused. Maybe a mild headache creeps in by late afternoon. These are not signs that your body is failing. These are signs that your body is adjusting, recalibrating to a different pattern of fuel delivery. And then something else happens on day 1 that catches almost everyone off guard. The scale moves, sometimes dramatically. Some people step on the scale after just 24 to 48 hours without bread and see 1, 2, sometimes even 3 pounds gone. They assume they lost fat. They did not. What they lost was water. And understanding why tells you something very important about what bread was doing inside you all along. Carbohydrates, including the ones in bread, are stored in your muscles and liver in a form called glycogen. Think of glycogen as your body's short-term energy warehouse, the quick-access shelf where fuel is kept ready to use. Here is the thing about glycogen that most people never learn. Every single gram of glycogen holds on to approximately 3 grams of water. So when your glycogen stores are full, your body is also holding a significant amount of extra water distributed through your muscles and tissues. When you stop eating bread, your carbohydrate intake drops, your glycogen stores begin to empty, and all of that water leaves with it. That is the weight you see dropping in the first few days. Real, measurable, but not fat. By day 2 and day 3, the adjustment continues. Your body is still recalibrating, and for many people, this is the hardest stretch. The cravings are still present. The energy may still feel slightly off. Digestion may feel different, sometimes slower, because bread, even with its problems, was providing a certain bulk that kept things moving in a predictable rhythm. Without it, the gut is adapting. This is temporary, but it is real. What is also real and far less talked about is what is beginning to happen with your blood sugar stability. By the third day, with the insulin spikes reduced and the rapid glucose surge is gone, many people start to notice something quietly remarkable. Their energy feels more even, not necessarily higher at first, but more sustained. That mid-morning crash that used to arrive around 10 o'clock, the one that sent them reaching for coffee or a snack, starts to soften. The blood sugar is no longer riding a roller coaster. It is beginning to move along flatter, steadier ground.
This matters enormously, and not just because energy feels better. When insulin stays lower and more stable throughout the day, your body shifts subtly in how it handles fat. Under conditions of constant high insulin, your body is essentially in storage mode. Insulin signals the body to hold on to fat, to use the incoming glucose first, and to keep energy locked away in fat cells. When insulin stays lower and more consistent, those signals change. The body becomes more willing to access stored fat as a fuel source. This does not mean you're melting fat rapidly in just 3 days, but the hormonal environment inside your body is beginning to shift toward conditions that are more favorable for fat burning. And that shift starts quietly, before most people even realize anything is happening. Moving into the first full week, days 4 through 7, the picture starts to become clearer. The initial discomfort is fading for most people. The cravings are still present, but they are less sharp, less urgent. Something is changing in the gut as well. Bread, particularly bread made with refined white flour, feeds certain types of gut bacteria very efficiently. When that food source disappears, the bacterial population in your gut begins to shift. Different species flourish, others recede. This process takes time and is not without its temporary discomforts, including bloating or irregular digestion, but the long-term effect on gut balance can be significant. There is also something happening with inflammation. Refined grains, especially white flour products, promote a low-level inflammatory response in the body over time. This is not the dramatic swelling you see with an injury. This is the quiet, invisible kind of inflammation that hums along in the background and affects everything from joint comfort to cognitive clarity to how well you recover from physical exertion. By the end of the first week without bread, that background inflammatory signal starts to quiet down. Some people notice it in ways they did not expect. A little less puffiness in their face in the morning, joints that feel slightly less stiff, a clarity of thought that feels slightly sharper than usual. These are subtle signals, but they are real, and they are telling you something important about what your body was carrying before. Now comes the second week, days 8 through 14. This is where the changes move from adjustment to consolidation. Your insulin sensitivity, meaning how efficiently your cells respond to insulin, begins to measurably improve. When you regularly flood your system with fast-digesting carbohydrates from bread, your cells gradually become less responsive to insulin signals. Over time, the pancreas has to produce more and more insulin just to get the same effect. This is one of the early patterns that can eventually develop into serious metabolic problems. When the constant carbohydrate load is removed, even for just 2 weeks, your cells begin to reset their responsiveness. They start listening to insulin more efficiently again. Less insulin is needed to do the same job.
This is one of the most meaningful metabolic shifts that can happen in the body, and it is beginning to consolidate right here in week 2. Your gut is also undergoing a quieter but profound change. Without the refined starch from bread feeding the less beneficial bacteria in your digestive tract, the balance continues to shift. If you have been replacing bread with more vegetables, legumes, or whole foods, your fiber intake has likely changed, and the bacteria that thrive on diverse plant fiber are beginning to grow stronger. Gut health is deeply tied to mood, immune function, and the strength of the gut lining itself. This shift does not happen overnight, but 14 days is enough to begin moving the needle in a meaningful direction. Energy, for most people, by this second week, has stabilized in a way that feels noticeably different from before. Many people describe it as cleaner, more reliable, more even. Not the sharp burst followed by a crash that bread used to provide, but a steadier, more consistent fuel supply throughout the day. Part of this is blood sugar stability. Part of this is the body becoming more efficient at using fat as a secondary fuel source alongside glucose. Your body is becoming more metabolically flexible, which simply means it is getting better at switching between fuel sources rather than being entirely dependent on a rapid carbohydrate hit every few hours.
And that flexibility matters more than most people realize. Think of it like a car that used to run only on premium fuel and broke down the moment that fuel ran low. Now, after 2 weeks, that same engine has learned to run smoothly on a blend. It does not panic when the quick fuel is not immediately available. It reaches for what is already stored and uses it efficiently. This is why the afternoon slump, that heavy, foggy feeling that used to arrive like clockwork around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, starts to disappear for many people during this second week. The body is no longer dependent on its next carbohydrate delivery to keep functioning. It has learned to pace itself. Focus sharpens. Tasks that used to feel mentally draining in the late afternoon start to feel more manageable. This is not a placebo effect. This is your brain receiving a more stable, uninterrupted supply of fuel instead of riding the peaks and valleys of a blood sugar cycle driven by bread consumed hours earlier. There is something else worth talking about, something that most people never connect to bread at all: sleep. Refined carbohydrates eaten throughout the day, including bread, affect your blood sugar cycle in the evening as well. When blood sugar spikes and then drops after dinner, it can interfere with the hormonal balance that governs sleep. Cortisol, the stress hormone, can rise in response to a blood sugar drop, which is precisely the opposite of what you want at night. Many people who remove bread from their diet report, often with genuine surprise, that their sleep feels deeper and more restorative within 1 to 2 weeks. Their body is no longer fighting that late-night blood sugar dip. The system is calmer, and sleep reflects it. By the end of day 14, the body you're walking around in is measurably different from the one you were in 2 weeks ago. The water weight has redistributed. The glycogen stores have adjusted. The insulin curve has flattened significantly. The gut bacteria have shifted. The inflammatory background noise has quieted. Your metabolic flexibility has improved, and your relationship with cravings, while not eliminated, has changed. That urgent, almost automatic pull toward bread has softened because your blood sugar is no longer crashing and demanding a quick fix every few hours. Now, here's the part that is genuinely important to understand. This does not mean bread is poison. It does not mean you can never eat it again. What it means is that your body was adapting every single day to a pattern you did not even notice. The energy crashes felt normal because they had always been there. The water retention felt like just your natural weight. The cravings felt like hunger when they were really something else. The mildly foggy thinking felt like just how afternoons feel. None of it felt like a problem because all of it had always been there.
2 weeks of removing one thing reveals how much of your daily experience was actually shaped by that one thing. That is the real takeaway. Not that bread is the enemy, but that the body is constantly responding to what you put into it, quietly, continuously, without ever sending you a formal complaint. It just adapts, compensates, and adjusts. And sometimes you only realize how much work it was doing to manage the load when you take that load away. If you have been thinking about trying this yourself, 2 weeks is not a dramatic commitment. It is long enough for your body to move through the initial adjustment and reach the phase where the real changes become noticeable. Pay attention to your energy in the afternoons. Pay attention to your sleep. Pay attention to how your stomach feels and how your cravings behave. Your body will tell you what is shifting if you're listening closely enough. If this kind of breakdown of what happens inside the body when you change a daily habit is the kind of content you want to keep watching, you know what to do.